It makes a lot of sense that Star Wars Zero Company is the result of a collaboration between developers of Star Wars Jedi Survivor at Respawn and team members from XCOM 2, who are now at Bit Reactor. Those two excellent games couldn't be much more different from each other, but their strengths come together here to create a great-looking, clever tactics game that also tells one of the better Star Wars stories we've seen since Rogue One.
They're afraid. Oh, but there's no shame in that.
Excellent characters, writing, music, and cinematic flair give context and weight to a campaign that centers around a diverse group of mercenaries, with force powers and lightsabers refreshingly taking a backseat to a good blaster at your side. And while its turn-based gameplay is instantly familiar to XCOM veterans like me, its more aggressive playstyle and flexible characters make it far more than a simple Star Wars reskin. The opening cutscene veers off to the side of a battle between Republic and Separatist forces, establishing that this story takes place around the periphery of the Clone Wars rather than its front lines. Our customizable main character, Hawks, is a former military commander who suffered a defeat and went into business for him or herself with a crew of misfits.
You still got it all, man.
If that sounds familiar, that may be because it's also a word-for-word description of Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly. But that's only fair given how much Mal owes to Han Solo in the first place. Hawks and company immediately come into conflict with a separatist-aligned cult known as the Infinite Coil, led by the enigmatic Fathom. She's bent on spreading a mind-altering plague across the galaxy using creepy bugs.
And I welcome you to the Coil. Now you are infinite.
While it's hinted that this disease may be Force-adjacent, it's a welcome change of pace to be up against something at least a little bit more original than yet another Sith-like supervillain. Unfortunately, Fathom's allowed to remain mostly mysterious during her chilling performance, and her relationship with her henchman's son prevents her from becoming a two-dimensional villain.
And look how you've blossomed, my son.
And even though it's not playable, she eventually orchestrates a climactic space battle unlike anything we've seen in Star Wars before.
You came for power, didn't you?
Yes.
Do you want to call it?
You know I do.
Then by all means.
Let's put together a team.
Your main crew members have compelling side stories to follow, drawing to mind comparisons to Knights of the Old Republic, even though this isn't really that kind of RPG and you only rarely make dialogue decisions.
The man just lost his whole unit. Can't expect him to be at his best after something like that.
Big Blue Brawler Cab fills the obligatory role of the alien who talks funny.
Blood's not asking whither we fled, asking whither we head.
Jay is a scion of a mining family driven from her home by the Coil.
I got the mining citadel up and running, just in time for Fathom to take it out from under me.
Rick is a medically discharged clone with plenty of brothers who need help.
My life was bartered in a war I didn't choose.
Cly is the Mandalorian out for revenge.
They think changing their names will keep me off their trail.
Telrea is an AWOL Padawan investigating Coil.
I'll join you.
And Luco is a sharpshooter who hates the Republic but hates Fathom more.
I am going with you.
What they lack in pure novelty, they make up for with strong writing and acting in their chain of story missions, which include a decent number of twists and cameos from other Clone Wars era characters.
I'm going down there.
I'll help.
The personalities that stand out the most to me, though, are non-combatants you interact with only at your base. Runa is Zero Company's personnel manager / bookkeeper, and her separatist background sets her apart from the rest of the crew and pretty much every other Star Wars good guy to date. She's also the most consistently funny thanks to her endearing vanity and high level of sass.
Runa Ratisa.
Hi.
Her banter with the young, by-the-book Republic intelligence officer Bennick is always entertaining while you're choosing missions at the holotable display, and she makes him a more sympathetic character as his loyalties are tested by the events of the war.
It's the cost of doing business with the Republic. If I don't supervise, you don't get paid.
Special mentions go to your medical droid Mevo and local arms dealer Niche, both of whom have some good lines.
A covert, unlawful prisoner exchange on a delicately suspended Sky City. How could it have gone so wrong?
The other thing you'll do before heading into combat is run operations, where you'll spend your limited intel points to pick which off-screen text adventures to dispatch your team on, unlocking more missions and earning cash and loot prizes. A lot of these do feel like blindly rolling the dice, because you're asked to pick which team members to send without any indication of who might be better suited for, say, extracting hostages or hacking into a separatist facility. So when things go wrong and people get injured, it feels like, well, missing a 90% shot. But I always had a few bodies to spare on my roster, so that never tripped me up. And some of these are more interesting dilemmas that give you a preview breaking down which of your team will be angry if you, for example, sell someone out to a hut for a few extra credits.
A Trade Federation defector will have information that can be very valuable to the Republic.
Or to us.
After you pick a mission and watch this repetitive, unskippable loading screen covering cutscene, which tends to hitch on both PC and PS5 Pro, the tactical combat is easy to pick up if you've played anything in the XCOM vein.
Another hit!
But while the fundamentals of controlling your team of 4, taking cover, lining up attacks, and crossing your fingers that the RNG gods rule in your favor are similar, Zero Company is a vastly different game that encourages you to dive into the fray and push the enemy around. You'll routinely knock them into each other, off of ledges, into an ally's overwatch zone, or line them up for an area of effect attack. Just remember to always have a backup plan, because you're still going to miss those 90% shots 10% of the time.
Are you serious?
A big part of why I felt encouraged to do all that is because even though permadeath is enabled by default, your troops are actually pretty hard to kill. Someone has to be down not once, not twice, but 3 times without being healed between missions before they're gone for good.
Take your time, eh, Majesty?
There also aren't that many surprise attacks, because the maps are usually pretty small and there's no fog of war, meaning you'll never be ambushed by an enemy you couldn't see.
For Fathom! For the coil!
On top of that, there are no lasting consequences for taking damage until someone's down for the first time and becomes injured. So I felt safe to take troops out of cover and into the open to absorb some punishment if it gave me a clearer shot or got me close enough to an extraction zone that I could make it out in the next turn.
Moving to the evac zone.
In my first 35-hour playthrough on normal difficulty, I didn't come close to losing anybody, though I do come to this with a few thousand hours of XCOM under my belt, so your mileage may vary.
Don't get cocky!
Another major distinction is that it's easy to chain together actions to give your operators more moves in a turn than their default 3 action points would normally allow. Your team's shared pool of advantage points are built up every time you damage an enemy or use some specific abilities, and then you can spend them on extra abilities, such as Trick's rocket launcher or Hawk's ability to grant an extra action point to a squad member. There are plenty of these, and that gives you a great reason to equip at least some people with blaster pistols. They're lower damage and shorter range than rifles, repeaters, or sniper rifles, but they can fire off 3 or more shots per turn to rack up advantage quickly.
One less coil.
One of the trickier systems to master is the backup ability that randomly rotates around your squad every turn. The character who has it can designate a teammate within range to assist them, and on their next attack that teammate will take a follow-up shot that always hits, even if the first misses wildly. It's incredibly valuable to have an opportunity to score guaranteed damage on every turn, but you do have to be thoughtful about this because it's easy to waste if your backup guy doesn't actually have line of sight on the enemy, or if you land a critical hit and end up killing your target solo.
Didn't make that one.
As much fun as it is to mow down dozens of hapless battle droids and watch them satisfyingly fall to pieces, Zero Company could have done with a bit more enemy variety. To be fair, there are quite a few types, including coil soldiers who make you consider who's closest when one of them dies because their allies can absorb some of their power. There are melee guys, sniper guys, and everything in between. But even bosses are just stronger people. Pretty much the only non-humanoids you encounter are the rolling shielded droidicas. Those are memorable fights, but after a while, most everything else starts to blend together a bit, even if you have to adapt your tactics.
Excellent shot, sir.
Many of the story missions stand out at least, partly because they'll do things like force you to move ahead by blowing up the area behind you, or have you hold 2 locations at once and then extract while enemies constantly spawn in.
Another wave.
For some of those, you'll do a string of battles in a single location, and Zero Company has a cool trick to tie them together. The camera zooms into third person and you run from one to the next, controlling Hawks directly until you walk into the combat zone. It gives you a much better sense that you're fighting in a real place than the side missions where, more often than not, you're dropped directly and jarringly into a battle.
Shamble tumble.
I do wish there were a bit more to do from that perspective than walk up to a person or a thing and push a button to trigger some dialogue, because the levels you're walking through look great and are full of details.
Excuse me. You happen to know this area?
That said, you'll probably see a fair number of graphical bugs during missions, and the camera can get a bit wonky when it zooms in for what's supposed to be a flashy animation and shows you a close-up of a wall instead. A few times after a slow-motion Overwatch reaction shot, I thought I might have to force quit out because everything hung for a good 20 seconds before resuming. But I haven't seen anything that noticeably messed me up, and I never once had to reload a mission because I felt something hadn't gone according to plan thanks to a glitch. So it is safe to say Zero Company is substantially less buggy than XCOM 2 when it first came out, and maybe even today.
The Infinite is undamaged.
Welcome to Zero Company.
Thank you, sir. Consider me ready, willing, and able.
Zero Company's character progression is a little strange in that you're given almost complete freedom to remake most of your team at will. Hawks, for instance, can be changed from a medic on one mission to a sniper on the next, or any of the other 6 specialties after that. You can respec all of his skill points and swap out his gun to further customize how you want him to play. And a wonderfully nerdy touch, each of these guns has multiple cosmetic looks, each with their own sound effects. All the minor recruitable characters are just as pliable, excluding the incredibly handy astromech droids, which are purpose-built for handing out action points to teammates and lobbing grenades and healing items like crazy. That level of flexibility certainly encourages experimentation, even if it does make your choices matter a little bit less when it comes to building out your team in the long term. The only real restrictions are on your main crewmates, who can still be respec'd, but each have a defining class and a unique ability that give you a reason to keep them alive, on top of being able to complete their story missions, of course.
I'm going to end this droid one way or another. But with your help, it'll go faster.
Jay's last shot triggers a fantastically helpful automatic execution when an enemy's HP falls below a threshold.
Well done!
Cab's melee attack refunds your attack points if it kills the target, making for a literal hit and run.
What's for supper? Come here, ma!
Fly has a Mandalorian jetpack that sets people on fire as she lands. Trick can resurrect himself once per mission, etc. Telrea naturally has her own unique Jedi skill system. One thing that can't be redone at will, though, is the bond bonuses. When 2 teammates care about each other very much, they level up their bond and you get to choose between 3 randomly selected bonuses that apply to both of them. These are pretty small boosts on their own, but they can add up over time and will significantly increase some crucial stats if you're consistent with your choices. Things get doubly complex when you unlock the ability to give each character a secondary class, which lets you split their skill points between 2 class trees or concentrate on one. That opens up a whole new layer of opportunity for synergizing abilities, weapon mods, and utility items. I feel like I only scratched the surface of this potential on my first playthrough, and I've already started another on hard to see how much I'll need to fine-tune my builds to survive.
Thanks.
I have to say though, I'm a few hours into that run and I can already feel that the replayability potential of Zero Company is a little bit limited relative to XCOM 2, because it's more story focused and lacks the procedurally generated maps and randomized upgraded unlocks that make that game so dynamic. That is a sky-high bar to meet though, so I'm not really holding that against it, and I definitely missed some missions that expired before I was able to get to them on the first playthrough, so I expect there will be a fair amount of new things to do this time.
So many operations, so little time.
Star Wars Zero Company is an excellent tactical game that does a fantastic job of slathering on the same cinematic look and feel we saw in Respawn's Star Wars Jedi games.
One of ours.
Incorporating strong characters and a storyline that's refreshingly centered on non-Force users and a non-traditional villain. There's more of an emphasis on cooperation and flexibility, and a tighter focus on smaller maps that encourage a radically different and more aggressive playstyle. It might not quite match the legendary level of replayability that's kept XCOM 2 in my rotation for a decade, but its lengthy story campaign is more than worth at least a couple of playthroughs before you can see everything and get the hang of its nuanced combat and synergies. For more tactics, check out our reviews of Battlestar Galactica Scattered Hopes, Mutagenics, and Menace. And for everything else, stick with IGN.